I've done various videos on points of entry or re-entry into the Digimon franchise, but typically my recommendations have been aimed at people around my own age. And after one of these videos had a comment by a viewer asking if Digimon Survive was a good game for their young child to encourage them to read more, I realised that I should have some recommendations that are aimed at younger Digimon fans. So, if you are a parent or you babysit, I guess if you want to get the kids that you're in charge of into Digimon for some reason, or you're just looking for things that they could be interested in, or maybe they've seen something Digimon related and they're quite curious about it, these are some recommendations that I would, I guess, recommend for younger audiences, for kids. Before I continue, I'm not a parent. I'm not in charge of any children. I So these recommendations are just from the point of view from a Digimon fan, and not somebody who's in charge or in the guardianship of, or whatever other words I can use. I'm not in charge of children. I don't deal with children. These are just what I would recommend for children, as specifically as someone who grew up with Digimon as a child and kind of looking back, because hey, I was a child once, so these are my own opinions on the matter. So first of all, in terms of toys and virtual pets, I would recommend a DM20, so Digimon 20th, or Digital Monster X. These can still be picked up fairly cheaply from like toy stores and from Amazon, I believe, as well. They are pretty decent. They're just virtual pets. I've done various videos on these models. The Digimon 20th, it can sometimes just be called the Digimon 20th Anniversary device. I think that's exactly its name on Amazon. And they're fairly easy to get a hand on. They're not too complex in terms of gameplay. And of course, the Digimon 20th itself was based on the original one that people my age grew up with, which was just the regular Digimon Virtual Pet. The DMX is a little bit more complicated and has a little bit more gameplay to it, which could be more complex for a younger audience. So I would personally recommend the DM20 over the DMX, but either is a perfectly valid option. And then next we have games, and if you can't get a hand on any of the older games, probably the best one for a younger audience is Digimon World Next Order. Otherwise, I wouldn't really recommend any of the more recent games, as the more recent games are typically aimed at an older audience, typically aimed at existing fans from earlier in the franchise's life, whereas the older and original Digimon games all had a demographic of children. So in terms of video games, it is harder to recommend something that a kid would enjoy. Again, the newer games are aimed at an older audience, so if you have any older consoles like a PlayStation 1 or any of the Nintendo DS models, you could get the older games which are aimed at a younger audience. Of course, the original games are ones that I played when I was a kid. I played Digimon World when I was, I want to say 8, and Digimon World Next Order is kind of more or less a continuation from that. So in terms of the more recent games, I would probably only recommend Digimon World Next Order for a kid. The other ones, I think, are probably a little bit too mature for a younger audience, but again, if this is your kid, you can kind of choose what you think is appropriate for your own child. And then in terms of the anime, the most recent seasons, being Ghost Game, Atmon, Cross Wars, or Colon, are all available on Crunchyroll, and I'm fairly certain worldwide. Ghost Game has various horror theme elements which could be frightening for young children, so it's best to be mindful of that. But otherwise, the anime is fairly good for children. It's not like it's not often aimed at adults. The exceptions being the Digimon Adventure Tri, Kizuna, and the Beginning movies, which Tri is on Crunchyroll, Kizuna is not, and the Beginning, as of recording this, just came out in theaters. So those ones are more aimed at an older audience. But in terms of the anime TV seasons, like Ghost Game, Atmon, Cross Wars, those are all aimed at kids. Cross Wars, I would say, has the younger demographic of the anime from my own personal feelings. Atmon is a pretty good kind of like all ages anime, and then Ghost Game is probably better aimed at teenagers. Again, there are quite a few horror elements. It's like a slightly more disturbing Scooby-Doo or Lilo and Stitch, but otherwise those are my recommendations for the anime. But also any of the older stuff is good as well, if you can get your hands on it. Some streaming sites in America have the original seasons, and there's also, I believe, Europe and the UK have the first 2 seasons, I want to say, on Crunchyroll. But other than that, you'll probably have to look for a home DVD release or something similar. So those are my recommendations for kids to get into the franchise in terms of the various different aspects of the franchise, like toys, like games, like the anime. There is, of course, the card game, which I'm not too knowledgeable on, but you can just get like starter decks. So if you're wanting something that is something that you can interact with your child with, then in that case, I would recommend the TCG game. I don't play the game. I have the cards because I'm like that apparently. I just like the cards. They just look pretty. So if you're wanting to play a game with your kids, I've heard great things about the Digimon card game, the new one, so you probably can just go to any game store or card game store, and specifically you could pick up maybe 2 starter decks and you could learn and play with your kids. Again, I don't really have that many thoughts about the Digimon card game. I have a lot of friends who are very much big fans of the card game, so there is that. It does have raving reviews, positive reviews about the card game, but I can't personally speak for my own thoughts about this card game. But that's definitely something else that you can do as another way to get a kid into Digimon, I suppose. But that's something that you would have to also play with them. So maybe you babysit, maybe you want to get the kid into the Digimon card game and you don't want them to get into Magic the Gathering. I don't know, you get them into Digimon. I don't know. But in any case, again, I don't play the card game, but I have heard some fairly positive things about it. So there we go. Those are my recommendations in terms of what I would recommend to get a kid into Digimon. The only ones that I really say do not, or I would recommend against getting them into Digimon with, is probably Digimon Survive. That one's fairly disturbing, and I would say Ghost Game I liked it, but I can see that being deeply disturbing for children as well, not as much as Survive. But other than that, those are the 2 ones that I would warn against getting them into. There is, of course, the Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth games, which are neither here nor there. I feel like they're a little bit too mature for kids, but it's kind of like, I guess if they want to play that kind of game, that's fine. But other than that, it's mainly just Survive that I would warn against, so that's one of the reasons why I'm making this video. So in any case, those are my thoughts about recommendations for getting kids into Digimon. Let me know your thoughts, comments, questions, etc., etc. in the comment section below. Like this video for, I don't know, I should have mentioned in my video about getting people into Digimon that my thoughts applied to adults. So I really hope that nobody got Digimon Survive for their 5-year-old or something, because I said, hey, Digimon Survive is great, everyone should play Digimon Survive, there's lots of reading. I really hope that no one actually got their 5-year-old Digimon Survive, because I didn't specify that my recommendations were for people who were not children, I guess. So my bad on that. So subscribe if you haven't already, and if you have subscribed, tell your friends, tell your neighbours, tell your enemies, and of course, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!